You, stop. It's not a clickbait. Yes, I got my Canadian PR in 3 weeks. Yeah, she's lying. Here's my card. Here is my PR card. Yes. So yeah, this is my PR card. So you know it's not clickbait. And this is just a testament to a pure miracle. And my friend who's a lawyer was like, wait, no, you didn't get yours in 3 weeks. But I did, because I was documenting the dates. And I'm going to show you on this video all the dates for every step of the process, as well as how much it cost me in total. But in addition to that, I'll also explain the entire PR process, what that means, in as friendly terms as possible. I'm not out here trying to sound like a lawyer, okay? Okay, perfect. Now let's get into it. Hi people, it's your girl Janie, and for the life of me, welcome back to 4D Life of Me. Well, long time no see, you know what I'm saying? Yes, I'm back-ish. No, I'm kidding, I'm back. So, for a lot of you who have said, where have you been, Janie? This right here is me saying, I've been away, because Canada life sometimes ups and downs. I moved places, because I think the last time we spoke, I was moving places. I got a new job. I'm settled, like the new studio, you know, the new background. Yes, I do that for you. But I'm good. I'm healthy. Don't I look good? So, but it also gave me some time to reflect on how I want to keep supporting newcomers to Canada going forward. So if you're a student, if you're a professional, if you're an entrepreneur looking to move to Canada, or you just moved and you're looking for like resources, this is what this channel is about. So welcome. And so this would be a good time to subscribe now and click that bell notification, so when we have tell-all detailed videos like this, you don't miss it. Okay? Sounds good. Perfect. So before I go into my PR story and how I got this magic and this miracle that I thank Jesus for, let me explain to you what the Canadian Permanent Residency system looks like. So Canada is a trailblazer in the world. Actually, first of all, let me drop some facts. Did you know that this year alone, Canada invited, up till date, because, you know, we're not at the end of the year yet, Canada invited 75,300 people to apply for the permanent residency. For a country of 30 million in 1 year alone. So you can imagine that amount of people. Wow. But here's the fact too. 25% of those people were people who have already been in Canada, have gone through the student process, I'll explain that to you, and are now invited to permanent residency. So if you've watched my video, I'm going to link it somewhere, just follow any of these. Link it somewhere where I talked about like top 10 tips international students coming to Canada should know. I also mentioned in another video about colleges versus universities, and how coming to Canada as a student is probably the best way to come to Canada. This is why, because it helps that bridge that gap between working and getting that Canadian experience and actually getting a PR, because you get it like this. That was fast. Okay, so now let me explain to you what the Canadian PR system is. Canada is a trailblazer, like I said, when it comes to countries in the world who are considered first world countries and who want to build their economy when it comes to inviting immigrants into the system. So and Canada does it very well, because they try to have a big number, a huge number, be skilled immigrants. So they invented, in 2015, they launched something called the Express Entry System. So, what is the Express Entry System, JD? Okay, I got you. First of all, let's talk about what does it mean to be a permanent resident. So the way Canada does it is, there's temporary residents, those are students and workers, pretty much visitors to Canada, and there's permanent residents. So there's permanent residents who are, the country has said, you've been given access to reside permanently with the clause that you meet certain conditions and maintain certain conditions, right? And then that is almost like the bridge between being a temporary resident and becoming a citizen. I think the only two things you're not allowed to do as a permanent resident compared to like a citizen is you're not allowed to vote and hold certain security jobs, right? But it's a path to citizenship. So it's a big deal when you get here, okay? So the way Canadian permanent residency works is there's different types of ways you can come to Canada. You can come as a business, you can come with your family class, there's different provincial nominee programs. But I'm going to talk about the one most people come through, which is called Express Entry. express entry means you come faster, right? And this was introduced in 2015. And it's been really successful for Canada in attracting skilled immigrants. And so under the express entry system, Canada usually would you submit your application, and they'll usually rank people based on something they call core factors. How old are you? What skills do you have? What's your marital status? How well can you speak English? And then there's something called like additional points. Do you have degrees? How high are your degrees? And then, like, so that would be core factors. But do you have Canadian degrees? Transferability. Do you have what is your English speaking skill like? Do you have a brother or sister who is in Canada as a permanent resident? Those type of factors are also additional. But really, if you do great on your human capital core factors, that's like your age, your education, your work experience, and you could be invited to apply, right? So this points sum up to a total of 600. And then depending on what class, and I'll speak about those classes in a second, what class you fall under and what the level of they're inviting people from in that rank is where you know if you're going to be a PR, going to be invited to apply for a PR. Let's do this again. So this is the PR. And under the PR, there are 3 main classes, right? So there's the Canadian Experience class, hold that. There's the Federal Skilled Worker, and the Federal Skills Trades. So I'm going to explain the Canadian Experience class first because I fell under that. So you don't pick and choose what class you want to apply to. Based on the answers you fill in something called a comprehensive ranking system tool or eligibility tool, you can have a sense of where you might feel. So pretty much in easy terms, Canadian Experience, like the name sounds, is you have some Canadian experience, be it mainly through school and some work experience for at least 1 year. You will most likely fall under the Canadian Experience class. Hi Janie, that's where I fell under. The Federal Skilled Worker is a class where you've schooled abroad or in your home country, you've worked for a couple of years, you're not a skilled expert in a certain field, but you want to move to Canada. Most people will fall under this Federal Skilled Worker. And it depends on what they call your occupation category, right? So some professions like lawyers, medical doctors, accountants, these are professionals under Federal Skilled Worker. But say you're in the trades, you're an auto shop repair person, you're a plumber, right? You have some degrees, or maybe you don't, you have some certifications in that trade, but you also have experience and you want to move to Canada. That would be the Federal Skills Trades category or class. Get? And then there's this other adjacent thing called the Provincial Nominee Program. There are certain provinces in Canada, like, this is an instance, it's not an actual fact. Manitoba, for instance, right? Say, okay, we kind of have a shortage of doctors. So even though other provinces are inviting people who are high, averaging scores of 400, maybe you don't even need to have too much experience as a doctor. If you just show that you're going to med school, they'll decide on what points, levels, or the criteria you have to meet, and then they invite you based on certain factors they're looking for, right? Not every province is like Ontario. Did you know, though, that in Canada, Ontario has more than half of the country's population? So there are other provinces who are trying to attract more skilled immigrants, and they would invite people from the pool who meet those criteria. So I've been saying pool. What is this pool thing? Let me help you. So pretty much when you go fill this profile online, I put the link in the description box so you can just try and see where you lie as of today. And if you see that you have high scores, and the way you know is because every other week CIC does a draw out of the pool where they invite high scores. So for instance, this past week, the lowest score that was invited was 475 out of 600, right? So if you use the eligibility tool and you're nearing that number, you can say, okay, it looks like I'm almost there, right? So you can use this comprehensive ranking system tool to check your eligibility, right? So you can check that, see what it is like, but also check and see what provinces are looking for who. Right? Some provinces might be looking for doctors, others are looking for accountants, you never know, right? And then when you feel that, you can have a sense of what you're trying to do. Don't worry, I would literally show you my application in the next video that I'm going to be making, where I would go into my system and show you exactly how I filled everything. But this video is just to keep it light to make you understand the process as a whole. So my story fits under the Canadian experience class, right? So what I did really was I came to school in Canada. So what I was doing was, yes, I was trying to be that 25% that I spoke about who actually get invited to their PR, but also I wanted to gain Canadian experience and be able to work in Canadian industries as internships and to get that different experience until I become a permanent resident, right? I've talked a lot about how it's harder for people who come from outside the country without Canadian experience to get certain jobs, especially if you're not a top tier senior leader just yet. So what I did in 2015, I had a bachelor's in IT from home, which is Nigeria. What's up, my Nigerians? If you're Nigerian, comment right there. And if you're not and you're interested in going to Nigeria sometime in your life, let me know and I can hook you up sometime. But what I did when I came from Nigeria really is I applied to come to school here in Humber, and I took 2 postgraduate certificates, 2 years, right? Usually if you do 1 year, you'd be getting about a year of postgraduate work permit time. But if you do anything from 2 years to 3 years or an undergrad here, you'll be getting a maximum of 3 years of postgraduate work permit, right? So after doing 2 years in Humber and taking a master's in Canada, I got a 3-year work permit. And during the time I was a student, I had a couple contract jobs because in Canada you're allowed to work part-time up to 20 hours, right? So I was working part-time in different contract jobs as well as some internships just to gain experience in how the Canadian industry and work culture is like, right? So after that, upon graduating from my master's program, I started a full-time job. And as soon as I worked on that job for a year, which is the minimum requirement for the Canadian experience class, and I have my Canadian degrees, I put in my application for my permanent residency. And this is where I'm going to give you actual dates. So I also have a lot of friends who are doing the PR process, so sometimes I will compare. So sometime in July, I had worked a complete year. So if you work and a complete year, I found this the hard way because I got a lot of my applications rejected, or I won't say applications, but my profile rejected a couple times because I hadn't reached the 1 year. So I was working way more than 30 hours a week, and I tried to, you know, work my way to a year before it was actually a year. The Canadian government doesn't consider anything above 30 hours, I believe, work time. So that's not on them if you decide to work 50 hours a week. So once I got to a year in July, I filled in the profile. So you go into your CIC account, and I'll show you all of that next week. And I filled in the profile. I'm going to walk you on in the next video. I'm going to walk you through how to fill that profile and fill it right, just so you don't make any mistakes. In that video, we'll talk about your occupation codes and every detail that matters, so you don't want to miss it. And this is the part where you subscribe and keep that bell notification, because I go in depth and I actually bring a lawyer on, so I will to show you in that video from a lawyer's perspective as well how to not mess your PR application up. And if you're the type who thinks it's all confusing and you've been handed it over to people to do it for you before, maybe you don't need to do it anymore with all those people who probably, especially if you who probably like take advantage of you, especially if you have a simple process where it's not like you're bringing a whole family and then there's issues with other activities that you might not be privy to, right? If it's a simple process, you don't need a lawyer to do it. So dates, as of July this year, 2019, I had reached my 1 year of work experience in Canada in a skill set that was quite high enough to either like fall in the CAC or Federal Canadian Experience class or Federal Skilled Worker category, right? But that's not on me to choose. All I had to do was fill my profile. Again, next video, watch out for that, right? So I filled my profile in July. And then once you fill your profile, like I said, every other week from the pattern since 2015, you get an email saying, hey, you've been invited to apply for your permanent residency. And this is based on if your score passes the minimum, they are invited for that round, right? So for instance, last time, this past Wednesday, they were inviting in Canada we were inviting people to apply with scores as low as 475, and this is out of 600, right? So my invitation was received July 19th, and then because I knew based on historical data that I was going to be invited, I started gathering my documents. I got my transcripts ready. I got my police clearance certificate ready. I did my IELTS a whole year in advance, but be careful with that because your IELTS sometimes expires, right? I got all those documents I knew I would need ahead of time. So I would also talk to show you all of that in the next video, so you know what to need for your permanent residency. And then I submitted my application August 17th, right? So August 17th is when my application actually went in. When I pushed that button, I paid my life away. It cost me, I think, $1,000 and some change to apply for my PR. And then August 17th is the date you need to remember. September 24th, right? The Canadian government sends me a new message saying, "Hello, Janie, we need your passport because we want you to, you know, become a permanent resident in Canada." And then I sent my passport 2 days or 3 days later to Ottawa, and I got the notification that my application was approved October 4th. So I got the notification that my application was approved October 4th, and then I received on October 10th my confirmation of permanent residency with a visa on my passport saying immigrant. And I was like, hey, let's get it. Let's get it. Woo. Okay. So then now, because I'm in Canada, there's two ways to do that, right? I could either go to the border, exit the country and come back and land, or I could go to a place in Kipling, not too far away in the city, and go get my landing done. I don't want to drive to the border because I work full time, right? And I didn't know how long it'll take to get landed, but that doesn't matter because I'm a permanent resident. No. Huh? You're given usually 6 months from the day you're giving your permanent residency visa to land in Canada, right? So I did that. I think I emailed the company, the organization, Service Canada, pretty much, and I landed October 24th. So pretty much I submitted my application August 17th, and I was confirmed as a permanent resident October 10th. So I honestly just want to tell you that this is, I'd say, miracle, because I mean, I know for sure that what would have helped me is, you know, when I put in my application, everything was clear, there were no missing dates, and anything that looked suspect or looked like it would have raised the brow of an immigration officer, I put an explanation, right? So when you're submitting your proof of funds, when you're submitting your transcripts, your confirmation of employment, verification of employment, all of that we'll talk about in the next video. You need to make sure there are no gaps, no errors, anything that would raise a brow, explain it away. Because I know of a family friend, who applied for their PR at the same time as mine, but because they didn't cross all their I's and dot their T's and another document was requested, they still haven't gotten a response back on their permanent residency application. So I'd say it's a miracle, honestly, but also, you know what they say, like, heaven helps those who help themselves, things like that. So if you can get a second look at your application before you hit that submit button, I really advise that you do, because you don't want to, you know, worst case, be rejected or kept waiting for a year. With that said though, like I always say at the start of my video, I'm not an immigration consultant or an immigration lawyer. This is just my advice based on my own personal experience. And I wouldn't even call it an advice. It's just stories based on my experience, right? If you want to talk to an immigration consultant or immigration lawyer, I'm happy to connect you to registered ones here in Canada. But I'll also let you know that everybody's case is different, right? I know people who legitimately, because they were in certain different classes of the immigration program, had to wait a year to get their PR. All right, I know that the federal skilled worker class takes way longer than the Canadian experience class. But I also know that even though the Canadian experience class, that my case was a miracle, right? Being done really early. So a lot of people will say maybe it's the time of year, the fact that my points were really high, like, or that I just got really blessed, you know? What can I say? So about my points, when I filled my application, I got a total points of 501 out of 600, right? And I think at that time we were inviting people with scores at 451, so I knew I was going to be invited. So my breakdown for my points is for my age, because Canada tries to get people between teens, depends on how old you are, but usually get the most points for being between 21 and 30, I believe. So I got 110, which is the most points you can get for age, right? For education, so this is level of education. Because I have a master's degree, I got 135 points. If you have 2 postgraduate certificates, you probably get 126, I believe. And if you have a PhD, you get 140 something. It's the highest level, right? And for your first official language, which is English or French, you would have to write an English exam, which is your IELTS or your CELPIP or exams. I wrote IELTS, and my scores were good. I think my overall average score was 8.5, so I was pretty high. And because of that, I got 136 points for my first official language. A friend of mine who did okay in the IELTS, but averaged a 7, got 113. Right? So there's points where you can actually, there's places where you can actually influence your scores, and your English exam is one of the best places you can. I mean, like, you can work some extra years, you can go to school again, but an exam that you can study for over a weekend or a week and get 136 points compared to 113 or anything lesser, why would you not, right? Because I had worked in Canada, I got 40 points for my Canadian work experience. And then those are the core factors. And so for I think did they call them transferable or other factors, I got additional points for my skills transferability. I cannot say that word. For skills transferability, I got 50 points for education and work, right? It's just, that is. And then I also got additional points for actually studying here in Canada, which was 30 points. And if you have a sibling who lives in Canada, you might get up to 15 points. Who not lives in Canada, who is a permanent resident in Canada, you might get up to 15 points. My score was 501 for my peer, and that's how I got invited, right? So in the description box below, I put a link about all the frequently asked questions you have about like permanent residency. I put a link about how you can read more about the comprehensive ranking system and how the scores break down and what matters just before you apply, so you can know next year I want to be able to take this master's degree because it will give me this amount of points, or this is the exact number of scores I want for my IELTS, so that I can get this point. If you want a video on me explaining IELTS and the points and how many points you can get for each score with your IELTS or your CELPIP, let me know in the comment box and maybe I'll make that video for you, okay? Yeah, so I also put the PR eligibility tool in the description box as well. So another thing I thought to share with you really quickly before the end of the video is the total cost of my application. Not just the application itself, but all the other things that came into play with my application. So in total, I spent about $1,350, which is 1,350 Canadian dollars, which brings it up to maybe almost 400,000 Nigerian naira. I'm not sure. And so you have to take like digital passport pictures, which is maybe more expensive here in Canada, about $16. I took my IELTS here in Canada, which cost me $320. And if you're in the federal skilled worker category, you're having to get your educational credentials assessed for it to match Canadian standards. You're going to pay WES, which is an organization that does that, or another ECA education credentials assessment organization, about $320 as well to do that for your degrees. So, but I did not pay this because, again, the PR system just used my master's, which was taken here in Canada, my highest degree. For my police clearance certificate, I paid $60 here and about $10,000 in Nigeria, $10,000 in Nigeria to get it assessed, right? For my medical clearance, I spent about $295 and my application cost $1,040. And to send my passport to Canada Post or to Ottawa cost me another $40, right? So in total, I spent about $1,350 on my application. So, okay, another point I just remembered too is if you're married, you get additional points for your spouse when you're bringing your spouse along. But usually if you're out of the country and not in Canada, you might be in the federal skilled worker category or class. and that means that you might need to have a certain amount of proof of income to show that you can live stably in Canada. But in the CEC route, you don't really need a minimum, because you're telling them, I'm working, I have an employer, and I've been in Canada all these years, right? So I think the minimum, if I remember correctly, for federal skilled work is about 12,000 or 14,000. Don't quote me on that, just check again. I'm putting the links in the description box. So I really do hope I've been able to cover a lot about my story, and how, you know, coming to Canada as a student really helps in accelerating the process to your PR. And not only that, it helps you acclimatize a little easier when it comes to like getting a job and being able to like grow in your career. So let me know in the description box if this video was helpful for you, and if it was, please just give it a like and a thumbs up, and tell me what you want to see more of, okay? And because you have stayed to the end of this video, I have a reveal for you. So if you notice, the channel name has changed to Janie Booz, which is my name. And I will be, you know, talking about this For the Life of Me series, just becoming Janie of Canada. Yeah, Janie of Canada is just going to mean like a newcomer in Canada, the girl who just talks about her story, but also highlights people's stories as a newcomer in Canada. We'll talk about the business of navigating school, navigating life, navigating that first job, and navigating your business as it relates to being a newcomer in Canada. Let me know what you think about that, like Janie of Canada, and I've changed the Instagram to Janie of Canada so it's coherent across all platforms. And I'll see you in the next video. If you're excited for that next video, let me know. Hey, let me know. But again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely day. I hope I've been able to leave a funny smile on your face today. I'm gonna be saying that, but